Hello, this is Lori, and I've got a new video for you with Created by Jill's blendits layered template 16, a new blendits template. And I'm going to be also using a Created by Jill a year in review kit. I'm going to show you how to take this blendit and fill it in. And this is a scrappier kit, not necessarily an artsy kit like you might be used to. This is a scrappier kit with some brighter and some more solid type of colors. And we're going to fill this blended in, and I'm doing this in Artisan 5. There are a few differences with Artisan 5 that make it really easy to customize how you fill in all these great layers. First of all, Jill has a layer over here that says delete this layer, but she's got some tips on it about experimenting and don't be afraid to switch things around and get creative. And I'm going to do a little bit of that as I do this. But if I scroll down and look, that delete a layer is down behind the background. So I can just make it invisible or I can physically delete it. And then there are some pretty detailed instructions on how to fill each thing, but I'm not really that particular when I do it. I'm more about just filling in each layer, working my way up through the elements panel. If we start with the background, a lot of times I leave that white and see how it looks as it's kind of shining through as I'm working on the template. And as I pick each layer and I fill it in, now I've pulled over the papers from the kit already. But you can see that I get my cutting board. So if the design is in a different place within that cutting board, I could move it around. And you'll see that in a moment exactly what I mean. This layer is a very, very subtle difference in the background, very light. If you wanted more of that look, you could copy and paste and duplicate that layer. I'm just going to work with it as as it is right now. And you can see that I'm filling in these different layers. And look at this, just that subtle, subtle look. And I used a striped paper, so it holds that stripe. It's really cool how, as you start building this up from the background up, you can start to see the changes and how that really, really makes an artsy, kind of a cool look on the page, even though I'm using some of the more solid papers. So here we go as I build it up some. Now this one, it's kind of these scratches. I'm actually going to leave that so that it keeps the white. So I'm going to skip that and go up to the next one. And this is my first kind of darker paper, but you can see that it's just a thin strip that it's filling in. So when we OK that, you can see over here, it's this thin strip over on the border. So again, I'm just going to keep moving my way up. This is an artsier paper. It's kind of a neat palette with some gesso on it. And that pulls in a lot of the lighter colors. Now at this point, I may add just some straight color, not the paper, because that's very easy to do also. I can go up to Fill, a solid color, Sample, and I'm just going to go grab a color from my palette. And my palette is all my working papers over there. And I'm just going to do that with a few layers, grabbing a different solid color each time. And if I don't get exactly where I want in the pattern, I can click on a different area. And again, you can see that I'm just building this up, one cool colored layer at a time. Add a little bit of purple because this is going to have a picture with my daughter, and my daughter loves her purple. Now, right now, you can see how it jumped. That's the skinny border that I had put in, and we know that there are still a few glitches with Artisan 5. Sometimes I have to go back and forth a little bit to get exactly what I want to happen. But I just keep working my way through. Look how this, it started out as looking like a really dark, kind of a a busy, very busy type of a page, but with all of these different things that I'm doing and pulling in some of the lighter colors, it really brings the beauty of this template out. I'll work with a few more layers, filling them in. Now this dark lacy look with the stitches, I want to make sure to get that. And if I scroll up, you can see what's going on. I've got some different pieces here. This is that lace up there. And so I can also be very specific with what I want to fill in and how I want to do it by just looking over in the Elements panel and clicking what I'm interested in and then filling it in from there. Now these bold stripes on top, I want that to add a lot of interest, so I think I'm going to add this really cool artsy page to it. And look at that. It really makes a cool look, like with a newspaper strip. And then I've got some words here, and I want those to blend into the background more. I don't want them to be quite so visible. Let's try this and see if it's still too much. Oh, now that's perfect. Look how that just works its way into the paper. Now with each of these frames around the photos, I want to make sure that those go with the photos that I'm using, that they really look good with it. So I'm going to switch over to my photos now, and I'll pull each one into the spot that I want it to go in, and I'll flip those over afterwards to put them the right way. So at this point, I'm going to highlight each one of those. Now they all need to flip 90 degrees. If I go to Photo and Rotate, every time I click Rotate, it will go another 90 degrees. So if my photos were facing the other way, I would have had to hit the Rotate 3 times. Now this is my son-in-law. I'm just going to pull him down a little, and with this photo in frame, I want to get that out of the way so it's not in front of him quite so much. So I'm just moving it down, and I think I'll move him up and over just a little bit. Now this is my daughter, and it's not the greatest photo because she's looking up. She's got kind of a funny look on her face, and I want to enlarge this a bit to make it more the size of these, but I want to move it so that it looks like she's looking onto the page. So first I'm going to group, and then I'm going to enlarge it how I want it to be for size, and I'm going to move it over how I need it to be to make it look more realistic, I guess, with her looking up at her husband. This was on their anniversary. Now I do have a lot of great elements here, and I will be putting some of these on the page, but because I moved this photo over and I haven't yet filled in the frames with a paper, I just want to point out that the frame, this frame where it was on the edge, it doesn't have a side here. So I need to make sure I have something over that that kind of ties it down to the page. And if I didn't do that, I could take one of these frames and I could use that instead and change the shape of my photo to fill it in, and I could get rid of that frame completely. So it's all in how I want to think about each one of the pieces. I'll now move that frame down so that it's right with the photo. So there are many things that I can do to really customize this and have it look the way I want. Let's fill in these frames now because they're so dark, and I want to lighten them up. I want to give them more the feel of the rest of the page. So I can take each one of these and fill it with any of these great papers. And you can see how the look of this just totally changes. And I think that's a pretty good composition for what I've got going on. Now these stitches are helping to hold down that frame. I'm going to move them over a little bit more, and I might go ahead and make them a bit smaller. And now I can go over to my kit and grab some fun things here. One of the things I love are the smatters that are included. These smatters, if you pull these over and put these on the page, and then find what layer you want them to go into, so how much you cover them up with other parts of the page versus how close to the surface you have them, you can really give a cool additional look. Now, it's a little bit hard once you get them down into those layers to move them around just by grabbing. So I grab it over here in the Elements panel, and I use my arrow keys on the keyboard, and if I want them to move further, I hold down my Control key when I do that. And now I can move them around and have them go where I want them to be. I also have more stitches, and these stitches work nicely, and rickracks and things like that work nicely to also hold down the pieces on the paper. You want things to look pretty much like they would if you were doing traditional scrapping and kind of creating all this mess going on. And there are certain times that you have to make sure that you're attaching things to the paper in a way that would be realistic. Those dots being right over my daughter didn't really belong there. I moved them underneath, and I think I'm going to slide them into a different area. So you can see as I fill this, I'm just pulling over some additional pieces and putting them exactly where I want them to be on the layout and building it up step by step. Here's a great paint accent. That's going to look fantastic in here. And I think I'm just going to pull it down and put it right underneath, so it just kind of gives this little corner peeking out from behind my daughter. Now, of course, I could go through and show you every single step as I continue filling this out, but I just wanted to really give you the basics on filling one of the Blendits templates and how you can really customize it and play with it and give it a look that is just really so different from the preview just by filling in the pieces along the Elements panel one step at a time. Have fun with this. Enjoy Jill's Blendits. She's got so many to choose from. They're all great fun to play with.